have a stunning update for you on the democratic degradation by the Trump administration, the constitutional crisis they're facilitating, the assault on our rule of law. All the way I just described that, it's not just me, Libby Luke. It's not just that. It's not just some political pundit, YouTuber, or whatever. This is a federal judge now essentially describing it the way that I just did and warning that allowing for an executive branch to unilaterally act in the way that it has in defiance of court orders is, yes, about the individual case. Right now, this pertains to Abrego Garcia. But zooming out, this is about something far larger. This is about a foundational constitutional principle that the Trump administration is undermining. So I'll give you the specifics of that ruling in just a moment. Let's start with, just because it's kind of, I don't know, the imagery of this is strange. Stephen Miller, who I've long said I would cast as a serial killer. If I were trying to cast in a movie, fictionally, he just has a good vibe for that, which is good. I'm complimenting him. He would be a good actor to act a character of serial killer. He's a Trump administration official, and he, right there with Kaitlan Collins kind of in each other's grills, got into a little back and forth with her as he was performing. Look at me, Trump. I'm fighting for you, as they were arguing over Abrego Garcia during this Bukele meeting. And then we'll move on to these big updates.
That question also.
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. With respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. And I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for his help to get him back? Is that your position? Well,
no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it per the court can only be directed to him.
I asked President Bukele, can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to?
And that gets us to a part that we already covered where Bukele says Bukele things, okay? But Steve Miller there calling Kaitlan Collins ignorant and thinking he's very clever, going, well, he's a citizen of El Salvador. Immigrants, whatever their legal status in the United States, are subject to U.S. law. And you know a really, really cool thing that makes us American that we have as a part of that? Due process. And so before someone is sent, in the most extreme example, to a supermax prison camp that is notoriously bad conditioned, they're going to have due process afforded to them so that we know that's happening to the right person. Especially in a context, if you can't get yourself to care about that, then of Trump asking Bukele if we can start sending homegrowns, Americans, that they allege are criminals. But we're seeing how much scrutiny they put into their claims of, in proving these accusations. It's very flimsy. And that's a dystopian universe that they're sending us into. BBC reports the U.S. Supreme Court has ordered the Trump administration to pause the deportation of a group of alleged Venezuelan gang members. This is under the Alien Enemies Act until they can review further. But after the Supreme Court, following other courts ruling that Abrego Garcia needed to have his return facilitated by the United States. Now, it's true, we can't go just grab him because he is now in El Salvador subject to their laws, but facilitate through diplomacy, maybe. And instead, you have responses like that. And if it is the case that you actually had compelling reason where if he arrived back, he would be deported again after lawful court proceedings, then great, do that. But do that. Do the legal stuff, please. Don't just act illegally however you like as you're actively violating court orders. By the way, on this and also on dismantling programs they don't like without congressional approval and also on all these different things. So here's the reporting on this bombshell ruling.
About Senator Chris Van Hollen's photo of him and Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Senator Van Hollen of Maryland looked like a fool yesterday, standing in El Salvador, begging for attention from the fake news media. Kaitlan Collins is joining us now from Washington with more. You're really looking at the legal aspect of all of this because whether or not Trump and what he says about Van Hollen and all of that, it is the courts that have some power here, and this message from the Court of Appeals, this order, is quite surprising. Tell us what it says.
Sarah, I've never read anything like this from an appeals court before. The political conversation is about Abrego Garcia and what is happening with him in El Salvador. In court, there are technical procedures that are happening now about what the U.S. is doing to facilitate his return to the United States after the Trump administration openly is admitting that he was mistakenly sent to that prison. He should not have been sent to El Salvador. And they are being asked daily what is being done to facilitate his return. What the court is saying now, this court is the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, overseeing the courts not just in Maryland, but in much of the South of the United States. What that court is saying is that it appears the administration is doing nothing to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return, and the way that they are behaving in this case appears to signal a crumbling of American democracy. Judge J. Harvey Wilkinson, one of the longest-serving appellate judges in the United States, a renowned conservative judge, he wrote 7 pages yesterday about this, imploring the executive.
Now, listen to the rest of this closely. Renowned conservative judge. And he feels it necessary to speak about the Trump administration in these terms, these sort of crisis terms.
Executive branch to listen to the courts, to uphold the rule of law, and to follow the Constitution in a way that preserves American democracy before it is too late. He writes, while there is still time. This is more of what the judge wrote in his order. If today the executive claims the right to deport without due process and in disregard of court orders, what assurance will there be tomorrow that it will not deport American citizens and then disclaim responsibility to bring them home? And what assurance shall there be that the executive will not train its broad discretionary powers upon its political enemies? This is the starkest warning that we have ever seen, really, from a federal appellate court, a conservative judge, toward the executive branch today in this case, but much bigger issues at play. Sarah?
Yeah.
And it's not crazy speculation that the judge is saying, what's to say, not that this would be the only reason to care about this, but what's to say that next it won't be American citizens based off of flimsy allegations? And that's not crazy speculation. That's what Trump said. He said the homegrowns are next. Amid his administration launching multiple politically motivated investigations into his enemies like Miles Taylor, Christopher Krebs, for example. In that environment where they're accusing someone totally baselessly of leaking confidential information because he wrote a book that was critical of Trump, is Miles Taylor going to be next to go to the prison and rot away? And they're, even by the ultra-conservative Supreme Court standards, not even abiding by that court ruling. And so, yes, to the judge's point, this is degrading American democracy. But meanwhile, what is MAGA media focused on? Desperately trying to characterize Kilmar Abrego Garcia some type of way. But that's genuinely not relevant. It's not. I mean, he is the one at issue here. But this is about our system of laws. Like, someone named Andy was posting about how, I guess, in a GoFundMe, the wife of Abrego Garcia had hearts, and the hearts blocked the fingers of Garcia. And so if you saw the fingers, you would see these tattoos, which I guess they're alleging are meaningful. Trump did a similar thing when he edited onto a photo translation saying that these different symbols meant MS-13, but that's just what he's saying, which similar things when brought forward in court were deemed to be not the most compelling evidence. But again, even if this person were exactly who the Trump administration says that he is, which increasingly seems unlikely, prove it. Just prove it. Because otherwise, what is this whole system of laws we have? You can just pick, and then courts tell you to stop, and you just pick whoever you want based on your vibe or your photoshopped image defining tattoos as code for something. Not to mention someone who's completely dropped out of the news, but Andre, who was the makeup artist, who applied to enter the United States, entered, and then again, because of tattoos, got held, but was going through the process, allowing himself to be held as that case was working its way through the courts. And then boom, he's just gone with no due process. And that's the crisis the judge is describing. And who is to say that next it's not Miles Taylor? And who's to say we shouldn't care that it hasn't yet gotten there and it's impacting folks with different types of legal status? And then media reports El Salvador's president reportedly had margaritas placed in front of Abrego Garcia meeting so he could mock it. So the senator, Chris Van Hollen, who went down to meet Kilmar Abrego Garcia, it seems that there was a lot of effort put into the imagery by Bukele so that later he could say, what's the big concern? Look, they're nice. They're at a restaurant. And then Holland said that they wanted them to go sit by the pool for this photo op. Bukele, I guess, or at least his officials. And then they put margaritas that they didn't drink in front of them so that they could again go on to mock it. And it's just a total PR campaign that seeks to, which is why I'm trying to speak about this the correct way. It tries to make it a debate about, is Abrego Garcia the left's hero? Or is he actually being treated as badly as he says? Because look, there were margaritas and the liquid was actually kind of low down, so they drink it when they're having fun. Oh, we should have put them out of the pool. That would have been cute. Totally irrelevant. All of it. Everything. What's relevant is the constitutionality of this. And I really encourage all of you to insist that in discussions with your family and friends about this, that's what you make it about. And it does seem that even Trump gets the problematic nature of this, because he keeps, up until he showed the photoshopped image of Abrego Garcia's fingers, he keeps kind of obfuscating and saying, oh, ask someone else about that.
Mr. President, we're hold you in contempt. Will you take steps to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and put him in front of a judge?
Well, I'm not involved in it. I'm going to respond by saying you'll have to speak to the lawyers.
I'm not involved in that. What? Excuse me? What? Who is this? That quote was from Mr. President. President Donald. Wait, aren't you? It says that you signed the Alien Enemies Act, but then, by the way, he did say, I don't know, ask Marco Rubio, he did that, but your signature's on there, so I don't know if you want to do that. What are you talking about? You're not involved in it. You're the president. You're the one doing the deportation. When it's convenient, he says that he is knowledgeable of and in control of everything. And when it's not, he acts like, I don't know, that was Marco or somebody else. And then you have this reporting about, again, just the disaster that the rollout of these policies have been, where a U.S. citizen was demanded to self-deport.
This is the email that Pamela Realist Saeed received one morning telling her that it was time for her to leave the United States. But the thing is, she wasn't born in another country. She was born right here in Boston. And now she works right here in Tucson on the north side as an immigration attorney.
I'm an Italian American.
Realist Saeed received an email saying she needed to leave the country within 7 days because her parole was revoked.
And at first I was like, oh, this is for one of my clients. And I saw it was from CBP, Customs and Border Protection. But then I looked and it was actually only addressed to me.
She says she was baffled as to why they sent this to her.
The .gov, I mean, it showed it was from CBP.
Yeah. So very effective in their application of the law. Yikes. Share your thoughts in the comments. A lot of big stuff.